We're following major developing news out of the war in the Middle East this hour. Israel's military has confirmed it carried out an airstrike on a crowded refugee camp in Gaza. Gaza health officials say at least 50 Palestinians were killed and 150 others were wounded when 6 Israeli bombs hit apartment buildings in the Jabalia Refugee Camp in the territory's north. But those numbers have not been identified, or rather independently verified. The Israeli military says it carried out a wide-scale strike on Hamas infrastructure, that it's taken over civilian buildings and that tunnels under the buildings collapsed. It also says the strikes killed a large number of Hamas militants. An Israeli military official confirmed the news to CNN, saying that it had carried out the airstrike on the refugee camp and was asked about the presence of civilians.
But you know that there are a lot of refugees, a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children in that refugee camp as well, right?
This is the tragedy of war, Wolf. I mean, as you know, we've been saying for days, move south. Civilians are not involved with Hamas. Please move south.
When large conflicts like the Israel-Hamas war break out, a phenomena can occur called the fog of war. Now, the term describes confusion and miscalculations that can arise during a combat situation, but can also be used to describe how public opinion can be swayed by online misinformation or unclear details around the facts. Now, for more on this, I'm joined live by Pacinthe Mattar, 2022 Nieman Fellow at Harvard University. Now, Pacinthe, thank you so much for joining us today. Walk me through first this idea of fog of war. Have we seen it played out in the past, and how are we seeing it play out now in the Israel-Hamas war?
Well, Eden, fog of war is nothing new. We saw it in the lead up to the Iraq war. You'll remember in 2003, then Secretary of State Colin Powell went to the United Nations and said that he had credible evidence of chemical weapons, of weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein had. This was a claim that was repeated in the media and helped pave the way for the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, which then took the lives of 4.5 million civilians. And this is according to a report that came out just this year by Brown University. And we're seeing the same dynamic play out in this war. There is a very difficult task that journalists have in moments like this, when they are on the ground reporting in wartime with conflicting evidence, conflicting information, parties claiming and disclaiming events that have happened. And it has played a role in paving, I think, some of the bloodlust and the aggression that we're seeing playing out right now.
Let's talk a little more in specifics. Most recently today, Israel did take accountability for the latest bombing of Gaza's largest refugee center. But talk to me about how the fog of war is still plaguing this. We're seeing discrepancies in death toll numbers. Biden questioning that a little earlier this week. The IDF claims there was a Hamas bunker, but again, no verification. So just walk me through this situation for the specifics around the refugee center.
Well, the Jabalia Refugee Camp is one of the most densely populated refugee camps in the world. Side-by-side buildings stacked next to each other. And you saw in that clip that you just played from CNN with Wolf Blitzer, the IDF is not denying that civilians were killed. They chalked it up to a tragedy of war. There is conflicting numbers about how many people have been killed. I've seen as high as 400, according to the Ministry of Health in Gaza. The Indonesian hospital that is just a kilometer away from the site of the blast says 50 people have been killed. Keep in mind that there are probably still people under the rubble right now where people are trying to dig them out with their bare hands. And so while there is conflicting information about just how many people have been killed, 2 important facts. Civilians have been killed in this strike and have been killed in the last 3 weeks in large numbers. And civilians are largely paying the price for what is happening right now.
I want to ask, in your opinion, how you think this is happening. What's missing here that so much misinformation, confusion around things that have happened either today or a few days ago, weeks ago during this conflict are still being contested to this day?
One of the most crucial things that's missing in this war right now is the presence of journalists in Gaza. There are, of course, local Gazan journalists, about 50, of which I should add 25 to 35 journalists have been killed in Gaza. There are no foreign correspondents there right now, and for good reason. I was just at a talk with the head of the New York Times this weekend who said that it was too dangerous to send in any New York Times correspondents. Reuters, for example, has repeatedly asked the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, for assurances that their journalists would not be targeted, and they have not gotten a response. Reuters themselves have lost one of their own video journalists. Hassam Abdallah was reporting on the southern border with Lebanon and was killed in an Israeli airstrike. This was confirmed by Reporters Without Borders, who did their own investigation into who was to blame, because once again, it was up in the air as to who was responsible. So meanwhile, a lot of foreign correspondents are reporting on the war right now. They are in Israel, of course, very dangerous, but compared to journalists in Gaza, in relative safety. They have bomb shelters. There is the sophisticated Iron Dome system, which intercepts rockets that Hamas is launching. Earlier today, I saw a tweet from Channel 4 correspondent Lindsay Hilsum, who was saying, thank you so much to everyone expressing concern. They had been on the air when the Iron Dome intercepted a rocket from Hamas. And she said, we are safe. Thank you. Please think of people in Gaza. These are the people that we should be thinking of. And this is from the mouth of a foreign correspondent who is up close and seeing what's happening there.
Pacinthe, you touch on a really important point I did want to ask you here. Which narratives, in your opinion, have been able to break through this fog of war, and which ones are facing harsher scrutiny, in your opinion?
Yeah, listen, October 7th, the offensive that Hamas launched, the killing of 1,400 Israelis, shocked the world, shocked Israelis. There's fear and concern for the hostages that are still being held. And I think we've seen very palpably the fear, and rightly so, that Israelis are feeling. But I think what's often missing, even in the way that we frame this war, it is often called the Israel-Hamas war. But I would say this is a war between Israel and Gaza, because it's Gazan people who are paying the price of the deaths of those 1,400 Israelis. We're now looking at over 8,000 Palestinians who've been killed. Half of Gaza's population are children, so half of 2.3 million people. You're looking at 1 million children who are in Gaza right now, who were not even born when Hamas came into power and who are paying the price. Save the Children put out a statement just a few days ago saying that the number of Palestinian children who have died in Palestine over the last 3 weeks is more than the total number of children killed in every conflict since 2019 put together. This is a staggering number, and I think what's missing is the pain, the humanity, the stories of Palestinians. And I think a lot of it is missing in Western journalism, specifically in North America, I would say. And a lot of it is connected to who we hear from and how often we hear from them and when.
Pacinthe Mattar, 2022 Nieman Fellow at Harvard University. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening and sharing your insight with our viewers.
Thank you, Eden.